Man, you know this guy out there. I always start off with this person because we tend to talk in the same circles and stuff. But I've got the liberty and the opportunity and the privilege to actually go into a studio with him once before, talk face to face with him and his partner from the Critical Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, Garland, Nixon, and the over-under for today, by the way, as we bring you on, is 3 Nixonisms. If you don't know what a Nixonism is, let's bring them on in. A Nixonism is something that Garland will talk about where he makes a point, he tells a story, he kind of gives you a way to relate to things. And I think it's so important, Garland, out there, because a lot of people don't do that. And when they hear you speak and they hear you do your shtick and do your thing, they can really relate. And I think it's awesome that you're in this game. I think it's really sad that Sputnik and RT has gone away. I'd like to talk a little bit about that later on. But welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on. And I'm glad that Matt gets to go on your show and talk about Hollywood stuff. I never miss those episodes, and especially the ones you also got on your show with Ritter. It's a great update to what's going on in Ukraine, Russia.
Well, thanks. And, I'll just say this, I pride myself in being a real person. I tell people this, my dad was a longshoreman, wore a hard hat. I was going to this, worked on the waterfront, drove a pickup truck. You know what I mean? He was a regular guy. So I grew up hearing regular guy language, and his friends they went fishing and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So, I didn't go to Ivy League schools and I didn't do all that kind of stuff. I'm just a regular guy. And I think that's why I pride myself in just speaking the language of the regular guy and girl or whatever the hell, because that's the way I came up. That's the reality. I think that a lot of Americans came up. And so I think that's why one of the reasons that I think I can connect with a lot of people, because they're like, yeah, he's not bullshitting us. He's just saying what he's, like it or not, he's saying what he thinks.
Yeah, I think that's important, because that's what I pride myself, try to be the regular guy, because I look to people I look to reach or to move or to get involved are not the people who are deep inside the rabbit hole, who are smart academics. I want to be able to empower working people to say, hey, man, you can pay attention to what's going on in politics. You don't have to listen to all these people. You can do your own research. You can make your own opinions. It's like that movie, The Big Short. They say they have the Wall Street people are there because they want you to believe that you need them to fix something, like they're smart. I think that's what happens in our politics. And when guys like me, you, Matt, when we do this right now and we're connecting with the everyday average person, I think that's powerful. And it's also necessary because unfortunately, a lot of the good stuff that we listen to, it gets really deep. My mom would watch and she's like, that went over my head. You guys talked about 3 people I didn't know. But when I watch your show here, you're really connecting.
The last thing I'll say to that is I learned a lot during COVID. And one of the things I learned that during COVID, that all of these people who thought they were like, oh, yes, I went to some vine-covered university, I went to all the blah, 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 believed everything they were told. And that, I connected with the people who just said, I got some questions about this. The government's telling me this health policy, but okay, fair enough. Why are they saying this? So why should I do? How does this help? They just had questions of the common man. And I'm like, you know what? There's a intellectualism to the common man that you don't find in, say, academia, because the people in academia, yeah, they learn all of these big finangled, words, and they learn all of this history, and they can quote all kinds, Voltaire and stuff like that. But a lot of them don't have sense to ask the powers that be for justification. They're in that system and they trust that system. And those of us who never trust the system say, yeah, I know what they said, but I need a little more than that. And I think COVID was a huge lesson for a lot of people.
Yeah, it definitely was. And for me, getting in this space with you guys, this is what it's all about, is the questioning. It's right off the bat, when we get the script, and as you guys know, coming from Hollywood, we call it Hollywood now, but you get your script, right? And the first thing you got to do is say, what's between the lines? What is not being said? And so I apply that right to this space. What you guys have been doing so exceptionally. The only thing I'm shocked about is that more people don't do it. It seems so obvious to me that we do this, that we look at the script that they give us and we say, what's not being said? What are they leaving out? And to get curious, get skeptical, and be skeptical until proven otherwise. And I think that, yes, Garland, exactly. COVID, if anything, that was the blueprint about what to do versus what not to do. And if you got it right, or even if you got it wrong, but you figured out that you got it wrong, now you know how to do it. And we just apply that to everything moving forward. And that's how we do it here on this show. So I love these conversations with you both. And I think that what better subject to bring up right now other than Ukraine, because what other subject has affected us as far as our ability to do journalism and the sanctions that were put on by Joe Biden, and claiming that any sort of discussion against the Western Empire was considered propaganda for Russia, when we're just asking questions. But Garland, you've been doing all the great work in that regard for the last 3 years on this topic and beyond, and before that even, which is the point. You got to get historical context, not just the day that Putin wakes up and decides, I want to take over the planet. That's not the story. There's more to it. So here we are right now.
Well, he didn't want to just take over the planet. He wanted to recreate the old Soviet Union first. And when that's done, then take over the planet. Then take over.
Yes, the next Hitler. They're always the next Hitler.
You got to throw in the Red Scare first to sell it.
Yes.
The domino effect, right?
Yeah.
So I want to play this little clip of Zelensky and his recent little I guess a communication, and this is as a response, or whether he's responding directly or not, but we understand there's protests that have been going on these last several days. It's a little different than we've seen before, and he might be getting more scared than usual. He was already kind of acting scared, but here we are. I think some people are saying this is him doubling down on the dictator language as kind of an overcorrection of what looks like kind of the end of his reign right now. Let's play this real quick, and I think I'll do the translation here. Okay. I signed a law today that strengthens the security service of Ukraine, which gives the service more opportunities to carry out its combat missions and destroy the occupier, and to conduct special operations to protect Ukraine. The number is increasing, in particular for the units of the SBU, Special Operations Center. These are some of the most effective warriors. Okay, and then of course you guys, you see his presentation, the way the camera's up at him. This is the first time we're not seeing him in a t-shirt. He looks kind of like he's trying to present a little more powerful, a little more, some would say, a little more dictatorship-ish, fascist, whatever the word is. But I want to pass it to you, Garland. Is this any different than the language we've seen from him before? Is there something different happening now? And is this because of, if so, the protests that have been breaking out in Ukraine?
You know, there's definitely some kind of instability going on, and because I don't see Ukraine as a legitimate state, I see it as a puppet state for, you know, the U.S., EU, and all of that. I say this is the instability in Ukraine, or the instability, say, between Washington and London, you know, arguing over, because in my opinion, but this is my opinion, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but my opinion, other people feel like this, that he is a creation of MI6, right? That when you look at Ukraine, that you're looking at a division of labor, whereas the Brits, they provide, you know, the government and the intelligence for the most part stuff, where the U.S. is the muscle, we're the goons, we provide the military hardware and stuff like that. France, their job is like the French Foreign Legion. They've got a history of working with mercenaries. So you've got these imperial powers dividing labor up. And in my opinion, the government of Ukraine was put together by MI6. And here's some evidence of that too. When he had the fight with Trump, where'd he go? Straight to London. Straight there, boom, to London, and they all hugged him. Oh, we love him. He's great, blah, blah, blah. That's his home base. That's his source of power. So I think rather than, certainly there's, I mean, Ukraine's more a concentration camp than anything else. They're kidnapping their own citizens and sending them to the front. So it's a concentration camp. They had like 6 or something TV stations, a bunch of TV channels. They melded them all into one, and all they show is propaganda 24 hours a day. They outlawed all political parties except his. They outlawed everything other than the things that give the propaganda through him to the U.S. So I think what we're looking at is fights or finagling between the Trump administration and London over what to do. I don't think he has any agency. I don't think he has any real power. I think, you know, the organ grinders are in Washington and London, and he's just their monkey. So I think he's a production. So maybe if London wants to keep him in, they say to him, look, we're going to put you in front of this and do that. If you remember, he was in front of a green screen all the time before.
Yes.
But now
Yes.
it's like, okay, let's not go to green screen. We're going to put some fake medals behind you. We're going to put you in this little black thing. You're not going to be in your green janitor's outfit, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's a London production. I think it's all a production that I've come to the conclusion that, very recently, like within the last few minutes, that what we're seeing is squabbling between the powers that use these puppets.
That's interesting, because I would also piggyback the fact that I don't think it's just a MI6 alone, right? Like you did mention France's role, US's role, but I'd also like to interject that the IDF and Israel has a role, because Zelensky's original backer was Igor Kolomoisky, dual citizenship, Zionist with Israel. And as we know, the gates of Zion seem to always go through Israel. A lot of the past prime ministers are actually from that area of Ukraine and whatnot, Odessa and whatnot. But I have two questions. So let's start at one point right now, because I'm curious to hear your opinion. The Mark Sloboda effect.
Can I make a quick comment on that,
yes,
on that whole Israel thing?
Yeah.
And let's not forget a couple of things. 20% of the Israelis are Russian Jews.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing I found out when the Soviet Union collapsed, right? When it fell apart, you had a lot of Jewish people that now you have a country that, it's poverty, it's a world of trouble, and neoliberals are picking at the pieces in the 90s. So you had a bunch of Jewish people that said, well, heck, I can go to a country that's economically sound. I'm going to move to Israel, and then I'm Jewish, so I can do that. But you also had a lot of people who could get their paperwork destroyed who says, yeah, I'm Jewish too, who weren't. But they wanted to get out of a collapsing country and get into another one. Yeah. So you have issues where there are people between Israel and other places who aren't necessarily Israeli, who aren't necessarily Jewish, who are up to all kinds of things. So there's a lot more that meets them eye to Israel. And let's not forget, it was the Brits who created Israel. So MI6 still has a strong foundation in the Israeli government. I mean, and with the Mossad and in Israel, a powerful foundation. MI6 is, so it only makes sense that Israel would be part of the Ukraine project, which some think is actually kind of intellectually and philosophically led by MI6 more so than the US.
Yeah. The shame about it is that, like you said, there's a lot of, I think Russia has a sensitivity. Like, in other words, you won't hear Lavrov or Putin, go forth and fund the Israeli government for a genocide, but they'll always acknowledge their right to exist. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there are a lot of Russian Jews that are living over there. There's a history of it's a questionable history about, pogroms in Russia, which Putin kind of talks out against, but that is there.
And they got a lot of money and power. They have a lot of money and power. So it's a situation, if you're a Russian politician, you have to acknowledge that reality.
But the reality is also that Israel has been funding Ukraine too as well. Yep. And that weaponry has been used to kill Russians. It's a quagmire at best. That leads me to my next question. Okay. So I call it the Mark Sloboda effect, right? I believe that Ukraine was looking for an exit ramp to get out of there. They were going to seize the territory taken by Russian, stop, set up shop, bring BlackRock, Vanguard in there, turn it into a 15-minute city. All right, they got the Russian-speaking areas, but whatever the case may be, they were going to cut ties, find a way to get out there, and still maintain a country, a U.S. proxy country. Now, when Mark Sloboda told me that, no, it's not going to end, and this is months and months ago, and I'm like, you're right, they're not going to end this. Trump is not going to end this. When Trump got in, I believe he never had the power to end it. Like, his superiors said no way, that he was just barking, whatnot. What's going to happen now? How does this end? Is this just going to be an every day effect? If this is a common thing now, Ukraine and Russia will be at war for a while, or will Russia have no choice, Garland, in your opinion, but to take Kiev? because they're never going to allow a government that is just so many Nazis in it, right? They have so much power, whether it be the street justice, their parliament, their presidency now doing business with Nazis. How can the Russian Federation ever exist next to a country like that? Aren't they going to have to take Kiev? And the little cherry on top of that, Garland, isn't that what the West, the French, the Americans, they want? Because now they can expand NATO even more. Going, look what Russia's doing. It's Putin starting the USSR again. Your thoughts?
If I can I? Let me try. Can I share?
Sure.
Sharing is caring.
Share
Of course.
screen. And boom. Now, if you could share that screen.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, so let me move it a little smaller. Now, if you look at Europe, you see how big Europe is, and Western Europe's over there. Look at the Russian border, right? And look at Belarus and Ukraine. How much of Russia's border that is. Yeah. See, they tried to do the U.S., Britain, West NATO tried to do a color revolution in Belarus, but it didn't work. So the Russians kept Belarus and brought it in as a union state. Look at Ukraine. Look how much of the border that is on Russia. So if they were able to take Ukraine and Belarus and get that border, then Russia's got real problems. But if Russia has Belarus and Ukraine and becomes and controls the Black Sea, it becomes real difficult, because the only thing really that the West can do is go. You see up there where like Latvia, Lithuania, these little two countries, Estonia, they got that little border there. Yeah, and of course Finland. But the problem with Finland is there's like 6 million people in Finland. It's mostly open nothingness. How do you attack them from there? You're in the wide open. You're going to get bombed, and it makes it difficult. So if you look at Ukraine and Belarus, there's this huge border. It makes it almost impossible for NATO to attack Russia through Estonia and Latvia, that little teeny border. For them, what are they going to do? Bunch of 500,000 troops up in that little teeny area and come through there? So that's why, if you look at a map, you see how critical Ukraine is when you put it beside Belarus to Russia. So the bottom line is, Russia's going to do what they have to do to protect their border. There's the term of border, right? But there's another term, and the other term is strategic border. And that is, okay, this is our physical border, but strategically, what areas around our border could someone threaten us from? And Ukraine is Russia's strategic border, and Russia is going to fight, and they're going to take all the parts that they need to protect their strategic border. Now, what they say is, we need the term they've used is cordon sanitaire. In other words, a clean zone,
a buffer zone,
right? So that the Ukrainians can't bomb them. It's really a buffer zone from NATO. They want a buffer zone so they can say, we got a spot all along the border of Ukraine and all the way down to the Black Sea where they can't come get us. And it makes it almost impossible for NATO to go to war with us, for them to attack us like they always would like to do. So bottom line, what I'm saying is, I don't know exactly how Russia sees, how much of that they see that they need, how deep that they need to go. Do they need to go into Kiev? Good part of it. Russia's going to do what it needs to do to protect this border, as would any country, and to create a zone deep enough that it makes it near impossible for NATO to attack them. And then they're going to fortify that zone with troops and bases and missiles and all kinds of stuff, as any country would do. That's how it ends. Russia, when they say, we're happy that we have a big enough buffer zone that NATO can't come get us, then we're going to hold that, and we don't care. They're not really going to care how NATO reacts, because
and you think that could be obtained without taking Kiev, is what you're saying? When you look at the map, I think your impulses. I mean, nobody knows this.
I think they take Kiev, definitely Odessa.
Yeah,
I think they go to Odessa because they're going to want all along that Black Sea to protect their borders. So yeah, I think at some point, yeah. And people are like, well, what is NATO going to do then? Here's the thing. I don't know if you know this. Just the other day, NATO, Trump and everybody sent a whole bunch of new stuff, right? They sent some new Patriots and all of that, and all of this new hundreds of millions worth of equipment, and it got to the airport and unloaded, and the Russians knew where it was and blew it all straight to hell with missiles. Yeah. So I think while when the Russians move on Kiev and probably cut off Odessa, I don't think they want to attack Odessa, a beautiful city of the pearl and the history. I think they're going to cut it off, probably lay siege to it. But I do think that even though NATO may wish to stand up and do something, I don't think NATO is going to really have the horsepower to do anything. They don't have the men, they don't have the soldiers, they don't have the equipment, they don't have the missiles. They're being demilitarized. Everything they send to Ukraine gets blown to hell. They may want to fight Russia to stop them from taking Kiev. I don't think they have the capacity to do it anymore. We're getting weaker and weaker.
So the theater you pointed out earlier with Zelensky, which I guess we're saying it's been theater the whole time, but this isn't the script that was written at first, right? This isn't the initial, hey, we're recruiting you, Zelensky. We're literally taking you off of a theater stage. You've played the president. You've done all this theatrics, your entire acting career. You're perfect. You're a perfect choice. We were going to get Martin Sheen, but you're even a better choice. So we're going to stick you. But they had like 2 seasons worth of material. They kind of ran out. So are they ad-libbing? Are they improvising right now? Like when we look at Trump, and I want to bring Trump into the equation, because remember, he ran on ending the Ukraine war in the first 24 hours. Obviously, that didn't happen. But are we seeing now that he doesn't have any power either? His relationship with Putin doesn't even really seem to matter. His relation with Zelensky clearly doesn't matter. Where are we right now in the puppeteering of this? And is it something that is just being done on a day-to-day basis while the puppets that we see on TV, whether it's Trump or Zelensky, are just waiting for their next like cue call of when to be on, when to be on stage, when to be in their next cue? What who's deciding this, and is it happening on a day-to-day basis right now?
Well, here's what I think. A great B movie called Tremors, right? I loved Tremors. It was a great B movie. It was hilarious. And in there, I'll never forget one of the lines where the monsters are coming to get him. And one guy says to the other, "What do you do?" He says, "What's the plan?" And he says, "Run." And he says, "Running ain't a plan. Running's what you do when a plan don't work." Right? Yeah. That's what they're doing. They're doing now what they do when a plan don't work. They're in a situation now where they all along in the very beginning, the intention was to get this war fired up, to put these big sanctions in Russia, and Russia's going to fall apart, and boom, you win, right? You come in and you take all the natural resources of Russia. Once that didn't work, they were just reacting to whatever happened. They're trying to put out fires. So I think you got 2 things going on here. Number one, they never had a plan when their economic war on Russia to destroy Russia didn't work. That's why they just keep adding more sanctions. Oh my God, if we just do a little bit more of it, a few more sanctions, something else, that'll work, because they never had a plan for what to do. And I think, I go back to this, I think what we're seeing is infighting. I think you got this group wants to keep Zelensky. This group wants to stop. This group wants to continue. No, we've got to go all in and fight Russia. This group says, let's get the hell out and we'll go after Iran or China. And so I think what you're looking at is infighting, various factions fighting with each other. And that's why it's not smooth. You know what I mean? And that's why one day you're like, okay, I see why they did that. And the next day you're like, well, hell, that doesn't make sense. I understand the way they were going here and what they were going to do. Well, I guess they're going to rub Zelensky out, but now it looks like they're not going to rub, because there's various factions fighting for supremacy to get their various plans going. That's my thought.
I think that Matt's question was a little incomplete. And by the way, the first Nixonism of the day has been uses the movie Tremors to get that first Nixonism out of the day. I love that. If you had that on your bingo card, congratulations. And I think, Matt, we was talking about the actors. Like, well, we also, in your opinion, who's going to play Zelensky in the movie? Is it going to be Ben Stiller, or is it going to be Sean Penn? Sean Penn did give up. I think Stiller came over there.
Stiller's going to direct. He wants to direct. He's going to direct Sean Penn.
He's going to direct Sean Penn, and Sean Penn's going to play Zelensky. Wow.
Too bad, because they could have used De Niro, and he could have, hey, let me introduce you to my little friend. You know, it had the whole pile of coke and all that kind of stuff.
It's going to be interesting. I wonder who's going to play Putin in the movie. All right. So how does this affect us now? How does this affect us as Americans? The fact that we're paying for this war, right? It's coming out of our pockets. I mean, a lot of people from the hurricanes in the Carolina, from the fires in Lahaina, pointed out the fact that they are insulted that they get offered $800 per household while they're shipping off all this money to Ukraine. Does this mean endless war now in this area? Because we also see what's going on with Gaza. That's crazy. Did you know that we've been bombing Somalia on a regular basis, like since Donald Trump came back in office?
Sudan too.
Yeah. What's that?
Sudan also.
Sudan too as well. So how does this affect us right now with Ukraine? Because I think a lot of people in the Trump administration, or at least Trump supporters, weren't necessarily anti-war, because they're okay with what's going on in Gaza because Hamas. But I think they also were hoping that they would take the burden of the finances off the American taxpayer. Does Donald Trump's now, oh, Ukraine's going to pay for it? Is that going to justify endless war over here in Ukraine? And what happens to us? You know, Garland, you worked for Sputnik for a long time. I was hanging around the studios. I was in Miami in their studios. I was on RT all the time. You know, there's some really good journalism that has gone away.
Yeah.
How does this affect us overall?
A couple of things, I think, and I've been talking about this recently. We're seeing a political destabilization in the United States. You know, the Democrats now have the lowest approval rating that they've had since they've been keeping approval ratings. 8% of Democrats approve of the Democrats' policies on Israel and Israel's military actions. 8%. That means 92% don't. And I believe that a big part of the approval rating downfall of the Democrats has to do with, Gaza, but of course, foreign policy. Trump's people, they're unhappy with foreign policy. So I think what we're seeing is a political destabilization in the United States, where there were people who thought there was some hope. Maybe they'll bring Trump in. He's given us some good, making some good promises. He's saying some good things. And between his inability in the Ukraine conflict, his refusal to accept the reality of what it is. He can't really accept really what it is, that it's a regime change operation against Russia and that there was a regime change. He has to continue to pretend like Ukraine is some independent sovereign nation and they just happen to get into a fight. He can't really even acknowledge the U.S. is using Ukraine as a weapon against Russia. So the bottom line is, it's destabilizing politically, and people are losing, which is good. They should lose hope, because there ain't no hope that these people are going to do the right thing. It's waking people up. That's what it's doing. Political destabilization at home. The other thing, I think, the big thing that Ukraine is doing, but that's in concert with Iran and the Israeli conflict, is demilitarizing NATO and the U.S. We're running out of stuff, and we don't have the industrial capacity to rebuild the military industrial, the war material as fast as it's being blown up, destroyed, and used. So that is one of the big things that's affecting U.S. foreign policy, is the inability to prosecute military conflicts. The Houthis ran Biden out in about a month or two. They ran Trump out in a month or so. And the U.S., everybody knows the U.S. military cannot have a sustained military action, 10, 12 days, and we're out of missiles, and everybody knows that. So the political destabilization is the big thing. And the second, of course, is the military destabilization and the demilitarization of the U.S. empire.
Well, one more question about the where we're at on the timeline, and this is from the point of view of the Democrats, who we know were the ones championing this thing from the beginning, right? This idea of the saving democracy, and a lot of us were like, "Well, what are you guys doing? This is Iraq all over again, Afghanistan all over again," but yet you're the ones pushing this and not trying to stop the Dick Cheney and Bush machine. So it was very weird at the time. Are we any closer now that Trump is imitating exactly Biden's policies? It's absolutely 100% clear that even if you still think that we're doing something to stop Putin and it's the right thing to do, just to understand that both parties are on the same side doing the same policy. It doesn't matter if Biden, Harris, or Trump. Are we any closer now for the Democrats waking up and saying, well, if Trump's doing it right now, maybe in the long run, maybe we got this wrong a little bit. Maybe we didn't really do the right thing. Are we there yet? So I'm not saying we're there, but are we closer to that in any way? Are the Dems exactly where they were on day one, where we said we warned Putin and now we have to show him that we mean democracy.
And by the way, I just like to say, Garland, I think that, and I talked to Matt about this before, I didn't think Trump had the ability to end the war and lift the sanctions, but I hoped he did. And I know you were kind of in that camp. There were some people of it, because we've been through the Democrats before, and we see what we get with them. They are censoring people left and right. They don't care. They have this fascist mentality. Maybe Donald Trump is an outsider. He could do it. He didn't do it. What are your thoughts there now, too, as well?
I think overall, darn it, I forgot. Remind me, Matt, what Matt's question was too.
Oh, no. I guess they're kind of piggyback off each other. But the initial idea is, are we at a different time now that the Democrats can see that it's the same uniparty doing the same military policies? And even though their bad guy Trump is doing the same thing Biden does this get them closer to saying, oops, we got that wrong? Or is it makes them just more confused and they just have a self-destruct, cannot compute moment?
I don't know that regarding Ukraine, like things like Ukraine and Russiagate, that the Democrats will for this reason. You know, I read a great book called The Confidence Game, why it was like the confidence game, why it works every time, right? And it was about confidence game, con artist, right? Confidence artist. But one of the things that I learned from that I think I can apply here, and I remember the discussion, and that is when a person has been conned, when a person has been lied to, and it's very embarrassing. And one of the most embarrassing things for a human being to do is to say, I've been had, I've been took, I've been conned, because we all want to believe that we're smart. Every person wants to believe that they're smarter than the next person, right? And if you admit that you've been snookered, you got to kind of admit it yourself that you ain't smarter than the next person. And that's hard, right? And so if you're a Democrat and somebody comes to you and says, well, when it comes to Russiagate, here's some evidence. If you admit that, we've seen it with COVID too, where you try to tell somebody, well, here's some evidence that this happened, and they just kind of look at you like, that does not compute, that does not compute. They kind of walk away. What happens is it's so difficult for people to accept that they've been snookered, because then they got to ask themselves questions like, am I stupid? Well, no, they're not stupid. They're human beings. But that's the reason I think that a lot of people, Democrats, are going to hold on to Russiagate. They're going to hold on to Putin is evil, Ukraine, whatever the case may be, because to admit that they've been had causes them to ask some uncomfortable questions about their own beliefs and their ideological beliefs and their cultural beliefs. And people don't want to do that. It's very hard for people to say, I got took, I was had, I was misled, because then they got to ask some more questions. Well, things that they're telling me right now, if they snookered me about other things, isn't it possible they could be snookering me about something right now? So I don't know how many times I've talked to people who are, diehard Democrats, friends, family members, or whatever, and they'll say, oh yeah, this is true. And I say, okay, I will give you one piece of evidence that's irrefutable about that. And you know what? We can search online. I can print it out if you want to. Here's that piece of evidence. And they look at it, and you see this look on their face, this like, that look of cognitive dissonance, that look that says, crap, that is right. But that doesn't align with what I believe, and everybody that I know believes, and it has to be true. And what do I do now? And their eyes just kind of glass over, because it becomes no longer about whether it's true or false. It becomes now about how do they deal with these internal contradictions.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to that, there's a lot of Democrats now that they will never be able to deal with the internal contradictions that they have to face. And so as they will believe these things as a matter of faith. So there is no evidence that you could give them. There is nothing that's going to happen that's going to change their mind against Ukraine or Russiagate, simply, or COVID, whatever the case may be, simply because it's almost part of their culture to believe it, almost like a religion, an act of faith.
Is there an in-between though? Because I'm looking at the timeline with Iraq, and there certainly were people on the Republican side that said, hey, if we did the best with the information we had at the time. And I would apply that to COVID too. There's people that they don't have to admit they were had. They just have to admit that we didn't know what we were dealing with, because we did our best. But we have to reposition our mind now, because we can't exist in that time anymore, because that time is gone. That fantasy's gone. Yet so they don't have to take responsibility that they got tricked, but they have to reposition politically. I'm just thinking, are we even one inch closer to that if they can say, oh wait, Trump is doing the thing that Biden was doing? Is that maybe we have new information now that's going to make us kind of back off and take our Ukrainian flags out of our social just a little bit of a step back now? Or is it just like you said, it's this tribal mentality that they won't waver absolutely not 1 inch.
I think we're getting there, but it's a slow crawl. And I think what happens, because the whole 2003 weapons of mass destruction, right? And I was one of those people, as I always am, saying, they're lying to us. We're being had, right? That's like what I'm going to say, no matter what the government does. And it always seems to be true, right? But back then I was doing that. And I had people, well, we've got to fight them over there, so they won't have to fight them here. They hate us because of our, our values or whatever, right? They would just, okay. And it probably took like 5 to 8 years later where it started, you know what I mean? Where enough people were moving over that now it feels safe. A lot of people in my circle are now like, yeah, I guess we were lied to about weapons. Yeah, what do you think? Yeah. Okay, it's now safe. So I think with this, sadly, enough time has to pass that these people feel emotionally safe. That lots and lots, you just can't even deny it anymore. It's so obvious. So much evidence is out. Books have been written. Whistleblowers have come out. And all these things are happening. Slowly, it becomes safe to come out and say, well, I guess I was schnookered. But everybody was schnookered, not just me. So since everybody was schnookered, it's safe to be schnookered.
Yeah.
And I think that's the direction you were going. But it's a slow crawl if this is anything like WMDs. Although I will say this. For COVID, I was pleasantly surprised that a lot of people within a couple years started coming around. There's still some diehards, you're in Hollywood, but I'm just saying, slowly there's some people are coming around a little faster a lot faster in COVID than they did with weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, I think it was a shame towards the end of the presidency race. Dr. Cornel West had admitted that he was willing to go open and listen to people. And we were trying to scramble to get something together to get in front of him. And I understand there's probably a lot of pushback against Dr. Cornel West and where he stands and what he does. But, I mean, I thought that was pretty fascinating, the fact that people were coming around. Like, all right, I'm going to listen. What's going up? I said I wanted to create a space, the left talking about COVID. It's time for us to talk about COVID because there are so many, traps in which the left, the American left, believed in that used to be everything they stood against, right? And the number one issue for Democrats was, and this is Democrat voters, was healthcare for all. And they understood that the pharmaceutical lobbyists, along with the industry, were some of the worst people around there. Yet they wanted to capitulate and believe them. All of a sudden now, these people are being good. They care about public health when it was always just a for-profit motive and you were against it. I do want to ask.
Can I make one quick statement on that?
Of course.
Before we go, I think it's important. And you probably know this. I have worked with the ACLU. I had worked for the ACLU, right? Public policy, doing public policy and all kinds of stuff in the government. And so I'd been with the ACLU for years. And I had moved up to the point where I was on the National Board of Directors for the American Civil Liberties Union. I resigned during COVID. They literally wrote, this is, just shows you how bad the so-called left had gone. The ACLU, I just knew when they came out with the mandates that the ACLU was going to say, yep, we're going to fight it in court. And I was all ready for that. And our national legal director literally wrote a op-ed for the New York Times that said, no, vaccine mandates protect our rights and we need to have them. And the vaccine's safe and effective. And I resigned and I sent a letter of resignation and I said, do not ever associate my name with the ACLU ever again. And I sent them a screenshot and I said, how can you as an attorney write that it's safe and effective? Here's a screenshot from Pfizer's website where they say under question and answers, we are still gathering data to determine whether it's low. There's to determine the long-term safetiness of this. And I'm like, the people that make it say they don't know if it's safe long-term, and the ACLU, and you're a damn lawyer and a law professor, says, whatever evidence you got, you need to send it to Pfizer because apparently they don't have it yet. I'm out of here. I quit. And they said, well, we'd like to talk to you about that. And I'm like, no, thanks. I got nothing to talk about. This is not the ACLU that I've been working with for all of these years.
Yeah. It's funny because that's the first thing I say when I talk to a lefty or an independent-minded person about COVID. The first thing I'll ask them, well, have you looked at Pfizer's own data on their vaccine? No. Well, why don't you just look at there and start there, and then we'll go from there. But I think the fact that we were reporting on COVID is more than just a virus and a vaccine. It was more about control and what public, lawmakers can do as far as when they have emergency powers, how they can affect the law and affect society. I think a lot had to do with that and getting them on QR codes. You talked about the Democrats and how it is, and it's like when you were on stage at the first Rage Against the War Machine. It's like you were like, I'm a lefty, I'm a hardcore lefty, and I'm like, that's who I am, and too as well. And I would always tell Beverly, like, yeah, me and Garland align a lot. We are actually true leftists, which I believe are anti-imperialist, free press, civil liberties, our voice, First
bodily
Amendment,
autonomy.
Used to be.
I think that the true leftists, the anti-imperialist leftists, I don't know where they stand on immigration. I know a lot of them stand like, I think Max Blumenthal probably has the same, and Anya have the same opinions about me about immigration, because we've been down to Latin America, we've seen the occupation, we believe that it's a direct response. We're lefties, we know that. What are your thoughts now on the right, the Donald Trump people, almost mimicking the same behavior, the confirmation bias, the going along? I mean, I could still support Donald Trump and be mad at the pedophiles. Homeboy, your man just said that the Epstein files were a hoax, like Russiagate. What are your thoughts now with the right doing what the left did with the confirmation bias and allying to themselves because they were part of a tribe? What are your thoughts when you see that right now with the Trumpers doing the same thing despite all the evidence against them?
I think a couple of things. Number one, that shouldn't be surprising to anyone because that's a dynamic. And when people have been had and schnookered, it is very embarrassing and so whenever people get a point where it becomes more and more obvious that they've been lied to, they're going to struggle with that. They're going to struggle with, how do I face that? How do I deal with that? And they start recovering they start off by making excuses. No, I wasn't lied to. That couldn't be, right? But slowly but surely, they have to start, some of them, a lot of them have to start facing the truth. I tell you what I'm glad about. I'm glad that there is some instability there, that within that milieu of Trump supporters, which there's a lot, people just act like there's one little group that every Trump supporter is the guy with a pickup truck and a rifle in the back and a camouflage hat. That's and he's chewing tobacco. There's this stereotype of Trump. There's a lot of different people. I've known a lot of different people that are, that are conservatives or whatever, voted for Trump for various reasons. Black people that voted for Trump, you name it, right? Women, you name it, economic reasons, everything, right? But I think that it is good that in that whole group that there are people that are starting to say, I hate Trump's guts. He lied to me. There are people that are starting to say, they're all a bunch of liars. I question the system. I think it's good. We're starting to see the instability. We're starting to see the questions rise. I think that it's like there's a hole in the boat. Man, once the water starts coming in, it's going to keep coming in. And I think there's a hole in the boat now. And yeah, there's people trying to pretend like they're rain. Everything's going to be fine, what have you, trying to hold on. But I do think that there's a leak. And that leak's just going to continue, and bit by bit. And Trump's caught, man. He's in a world of deep and serious trouble. He's still trying to pretend like he's the blue class billionaire and he's representing the working class people. But he can't do that and be president, because as the president, he is representing the empire. He's representing the billionaires and the ruling class. So it's getting impossible for him to square that circle. And as he tries harder and harder, and then he gets frustrated and just says, I'm the one who decides what's America first, not you. What else the hell else is he going to do? Is he going to tell him the truth, that it was all a fraud? So this is, at least, I'm going to be positive, the first stages of the MAGA people waking up. They were still Republicans. If you're still a diehard Democrat or a diehard Republican, whoever you think that somebody in that party or that some element in that party is going to save you and turn things around and represent you. Well, now they're starting to wake up to say, well, Democrats are crap. I know that. And if I realize that the Republicans are crap and they're here lying to me and they're going to snooker me too, well, perhaps I need to go in another direction, like where we are, And so I think I see it as a positive thing.
Yeah. Where's that direction? Where do we go, in your opinion? Where does the voter go?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that. But I do think we have to start by getting outside, by recognizing that there is no hope in this Democrat-Republican. No hope. Lose hope. Democrats and Republicans don't work for you. You are fuel for the ruling elite, to be burned for the ruling elite. And they have nothing but contempt for you. And the reason they hate us the most is because we ain't listening to them. We're exposing them, and we're telling people we're no longer going to comply. Yeah. And that the more of us say we will not comply, the closer we get to having a bottom-up system where the people down here make the decisions, not the ruling elite. And we're not going to tolerate a bunch of liars getting us to vote for them.
Yeah,
just so they can get in office,
saying, right? Recognizing the problem is what we do right now before we figure out a way to go forward. Is that pretty much?
And one other thing, and recognizing the problem ain't Biden. The problem ain't Trump. You know, one of the games that the Democrats are playing now is, Epstein, Trump won't do it because he's in his picture's in it. Let me tell you something. Biden was in for 4 years. Epstein died in 2019. 4 straight years. Biden could have did it. He didn't. And now the only reason if Trump's name wasn't in it, he couldn't. Here's the reason that Trump, and if you're in the Senate and you're in the House, it's not that you're in it. It's the people that own you are on that list. The people who pay your bills, the people who keep you, in office, your masters and your bosses are all the ones that are on that list. So you can't do it. And that also helps the average person to realize they don't work for you and you ain't their masters and their bosses.
Yeah.
You are the people that their masters, that they protect their masters and their bosses from.
Yeah. And I think that this is the moment. I agree with both you guys. This is a significant moment of shifting, because the MAGAs who've had enough, and I think you talk about the leak, Garland. Epstein is the leak. That's it. That's the one that's the iceberg right ahead moment. That's it. It's Epstein. And I think that they're not going to be running back to the Democratic Party. Some by the way, some left along with. Look at all the people that left the Democratic Party, right? It was the Tulsis, the Joe Rogans, the RFK Juniors, the Elons, so many that said, hey, we're going to go over here because this party needs to be punished. I know a lot of people voted for Trump because they wanted to punish the Democratic Party. So that punishment still remains, right? They don't go back to the Democrat. They say, now we punish both of you. We've given you both a chance.
I hope so.
And now we punish both of you. I think so. I think there's ways to do that. There's we talk about what is the next option? Staying home, right? The protesting of the electoral process altogether, championing a particular third party, writing somebody in. But I do think that there's options within that area of we're done with this uniparty. It's a uniparty. I think they understand. So a lot of them understand, and I think it's because of Epstein. And again, it's not the way Trump puts it. It's because Epstein, the guy who killed himself, who cares about that fool? That's not what it's about. It's about that Epstein opens up a curtain that we can't unsee what is behind that curtain. And that is they're all in on it. Like you said, Garland, it's like, why didn't Biden go for the Epstein? So we know they're all in on it. And I do think more particularly, it's their handlers that are making them do the thing or not do their thing. So I think that's the significant place we're at right now. It's happening earlier for the MAGAs. I think we had to wait some time before we saw what Obama did.
Stretched it out, right? Yeah. He used the whole room. Donald Trump I'm curious about this. Worst grade as a president. I've now officially given Donald Trump a worse grade than Barack Obama after the Epstein debacle. After he did that, I was like, okay, you campaigned on this. Your son talked about this. Your people in your cabinet talk about this. You were supposed to be the outsider that was going to bring the deep state to accountability, right? You're protecting them, and you're protecting the state of Israel. You're the most Zionist president of all time. Your cabinet is. It's ridiculous. What are your thoughts? Worst grade, Barack Obama or Donald Trump?
The times are different. That's the main thing. You know what I mean? To me, they're the same guy in a way. And that is 2008, things were going to hell. And Obama comes in and he's like, I'm going to be different. I'm going to give you hopes and change. The system's going to be changed. You're going to get some kind of change. I'm the nice guy. He was smart, good looking guy with a family, kids, the whole 9 yards. He looked like what you would think America would look like. A man, a wife, 2 children. Okay. Everything looked smooth. He had the look. He was a brilliant guy, the oratory skills, all that stuff. And he's going to give you hope and change, which he never really actually enunciated what that was going to be. But we thought it was going to be good, whatever it was. We were allowed to project. When he said hope and change, we could project what we thought that would be. He gave us a blank screen. Hope and change. What's hope and change? What do you want it to be? Peace. There you go. It's peace, right? So he did that, but it was all a fraud. It was all a lie. It was all a scam, right? To keep us docile for a while, as long as they could. So then people flipped out. Well, we want Trump. We want something different. Trump comes out. He's going to be something different. Same game. Oh, I'm good. But because times are different, Trump had to tell bigger lies. He couldn't get away with just hope and change anymore. That they already played that hand, and that worked for a while. So now he had to go to more people wanted something more concrete. So now Trump had to say specifically, peace it is I'm going to bring you. I'm going to be the peace president. People are like, oh, great, that's what we want. And we're going to lower prices and inflation. And people are like, oh, that's exact. So now, because times are more difficult and the natives are more restless and angrier and ready to start building guillotines, with Trump now, they got to give us very specific things. They can't get away with hope and change anymore. So Trump does the specific things. He was never going to do any of it. He couldn't if he wanted to. Yeah. But that's what they give him. So Trump is caught up at a time when he had to tell very specific lies that will never be kept, that he doesn't have a right to keep. And now he's hung up in that. And if he becomes too much of a liability, they'll throw him to the side. And
oh no.
Let's see here.
He's there.
Okay. We got you.
I don't know what happened. That's weird. I'm back in.
I'm going to kick this one.
Yeah, kick the other guy out.
Got it. Okay.
Kick the other Garland out.
There we go. We're back. Okay.
Yeah. So the bottom line is this, so I see Trump and Obama very much as the same. I see them very much just the system, given a particular time, needed to spit something out. And now, because times are harder, they need a more authoritarian guy. So Trump can say, well, if you stand up and say you're opposed to Zionism, we'll just send you to El Salvador or whatever. The system needs more authoritarian. They need a more of an iron fist. So Trump works for them. And then they can pound on people who might, protest against Palestine. And we'll just say that Trump, he's a fascist. And we won't say this is what the system is doing, but really it's just Trump. Well, why are they doing the same damn thing in UK? Same damn thing all over Europe. Same damn thing in Europe. It's just Trump. Trump isn't in the UK. And then Trump goes over to the UK and says, I don't like what you guys doing. You cracking down on people. And then he comes back and says, anybody protesting against Palestine? Yeah, lock them up, throw them out of the country. Oh, by the way, if they try to come into the country, make sure you look at their phone to say they haven't said anything negative about Israel, because we stand against authoritarianism and the system can blame it on Trump. And when we get so pissed that we can't take it anymore, they can throw Trump aside and bring Peter Thiel's boy in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like that might be the next move. We should predict when that's going to happen. I don't know if Trump's going to make it to the end of the term, the rate he's going, and he looks like he's definitely cracking under pressure.
He looks weathered.
He does look weathered. Let me show this clip to you. I don't know if you guys saw this one. It's not so much. You could say it's not so much a big deal. It looks like just a miscommunication.
It's a big deal.
It might be a miscommunication slip, but it's a sign of this wear and tear. I feel he's getting very, very early on in this. I mean, we're barely to 6 months of this presidency, this second term, and he's making pretty big mistakes like this one.
Look. I mean, this guy just thinks he can say what he wants, lie all the time. And really, to tell you the truth, Garland, I'm calling for a step back to get back to normalcy about what the president should be. I have a little video after you give your opinion on this from legendary investor Charlie Munger talking about some of the traits and some of the characteristics that Donald Trump has that we as Americans really shouldn't want this guy to be president. We want somebody who's going to say we can do better, not say we're the great, who's going to be able to take it on the nose, be humble, be compassionate. We don't have that anymore. We have a WWE wrestler saying, I'm the greatest ever all time. He's talking like Muhammad Ali, but he's got the record of Leon Spinks.
Do you want to do that?
Oh man, Leon Spinks was a pretty good vet until he got knocked out by Tyson in his own weight class. Leon Spinks was very, very good. The interesting thing about the interesting thing about Leon Spinks, and there is an analogy there. I'm glad you brought him up. Leon Spinks was extremely successful until he went up against, this is a great analogy, until he went up against Mike Tyson. And why? Look, he was so unorthodox. People would say, you know, you're supposed to lead with this. You're supposed to be smooth. He was falling the wrong way. He was off balance. He was punching when he shouldn't punch. You know, he was moving when he shouldn't move. And he knocked people out because people were like, well, wait a minute. I'm an orthodox fighter. When I do this, the guy's supposed to do that. And he does that. And he knocks me the hell out. Who knows where this guy's going to be or what he's doing? So he, as was Trump, he was very, very successful because he was unorthodox until he got in over his head. And then he got his ass knocked out. Right? Yeah. Trump has been successful, especially politically. He's been successful. Even his first time around, they came after him and all, but he became president. I got to say, you beat everybody. Not everybody could do what Trump did. And the second time, he did the fry cook thing. He did the trash truck, yellow vest thing. That was, politically, it was brilliant. Trump was unorthodox, just like Spinks, and he was very successful. But then he got in the right ring with Putin, the effectively Mike Tyson. But no, all jokes aside, he got in, and now he gets in. He's got Russia, he's got Iran, he's got the Gaza, he's got real things. He bullcrapped his way in an unorthodox way to become president. But once he got in, he had real, serious, like Abraham Lincoln-sized problems. He's not big enough to fight Mike Tyson. He's not competent enough to handle the kind of problems that takes a real president, not a bullshitter. Yeah. And Trump bullshitted his way in an orthodox way until he got in the ring, and he just is unable. He's not. Yeah. And now, the first time they were after him, he was sharper than he is now. He got times weren't as bad. He got away with that. Now, this time around, I don't think he's as sharp as he was. I've heard people who've been in a room with him say, yeah, he ain't sharp as he was the first time around. And the problems are so huge that it really would take a person who was competent and politically savvy to handle them. He can't do it. He can't handle them. He's in over his head. He's in over his depth right now. It's clear he's in over his head.
Yeah. And for the record, a lot of people feel that Leon Spinks was taking some type of drug when he fought Muhammad Ali, because Muhammad Ali kept on pounding him. He kept on sipping on this one cup they kind of pointed to. That was a conspiracy theory, but that was interesting to fight against Muhammad Ali. Here's Charlie Munger. Once again, listen to what he has to say about this whole situation. I'll put the volume up to make sure. Ready? Here we go.
I'm interested in your take when it comes to politics and the economy on Donald Trump. Trump has been all over the media saying he's a hugely successful businessman and would know how to run this country better than it's being run now. He told me that many of the leaders we have right now in government aren't very smart. Would Donald Trump make a strong president?
Well, he might be quite decisive, but do I consider Donald Trump an ideal decision maker or manager of anything? And the answer is no. And the last person almost I'd want to be president of the United States is Donald Trump.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Well, I think he has qualities that make him unsuitable for the office.
Those qualities?
Vainglory, puffery to too large an extent. I could go on and on.
Feel free.
No.
He said no. But Garland, when we talk about this, we see this plays into the Make America Great Again thing. Like when people say, what, you don't love America? You don't think America's going to be great again and stuff? It's like, that's not the attitude that I want to go forth, especially living in the empire, right? Because I like Jerry Rice. Touchdown, turn around, hand the ball to the referee. Act as if, have some humility there. When we say make America great again, it seems like we're almost excusing our foreign policy and behavior within the United States. It's genocide, it's ethnic cleansing, everything we've done. When we say make America great again, to some people, they don't hate America. They just want us to be accountable for our actions. And that makes us ignore those actions and not face the consequences. And really, I mean, it comes to what we're going on today. Had we pay attention to what we've done in the past, the horrific atrocities that we've implemented, we would probably be standing up more for what's going on in Israel, Gaza today. But since we allowed a genocide to take place, and a lot of people will say, well, if we didn't clear out the Indians, we wouldn't be here today. So it kind of was justifiable. it seems like we're using it to justify what's going on in Israel, Gaza today. Your thoughts when you hear Munger and these points of view, and getting away from a president who acts the way like everything's great. We're telling Epstein, everything's great, Garland. What are you talking about?
You know, again, paradoxically, I can't think, based on U.S. foreign policy, I couldn't come up with a guy more emblematic of U.S. foreign policy than Donald Trump. He is perfect. He is foreign policy arrogant. We can do what we want. We can invade any country. We can violate any rule on foreign policy. We can attack anybody. We can do anything we want because we're better than everybody. We're the best. We're America. We're the shining city on the hill. That's Donald Trump. U.S. imperial foreign policy is exactly aligned with Donald Trump's, kind of an arrogant, puffed up, I'm the greatest, I'm the best, I can do anything I want, I'm better than everybody else kind of stuff, which reveals a weakness and an insecurity, right? That always reveals weakness and insecurity. He is the perfect example. That's why it's freaking people out so bad, because I think intuitively people understand that's why that is American foreign policy. It has been for years, for as long as I know. But I think it's freaking people out because somebody's supposed to be there looking good in a suit saying, we're the nice guys. We're here to, to push, goodness and happiness and puppies and kittens all over the world. And we want peace and love and the American way and blah, 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 blah. Where Trump is pretty much what you see is what you get. Yeah. And that's what foreign policy is, Donald Trump. He's perfectly the best representative I've seen in my life of U.S. imperial foreign policy. It's him. So that's the weird thing about it to me. And that is, you know what, in a way, do I want some guy like Obama, who's going to pretend to be nice and talk nice and say nice and look good in the suit and sound brilliant, but he's trying to overthrow, Syria and this and Ukraine and all this and Libya, blah, blah, blah. Or do I want a guy who's some arrogant jerk, who's just going to be an arrogant jerk, and his policies are going to be the policies of a country whose foreign policy is the policy of arrogant jerks? Yeah, you know what? I'd rather people see what they're up against. So, yes, we know what Donald Trump is, but he does actually represent empire and cleaner than anybody has ever represented empire here, I think.
Yeah. Well, again, this is, I agree that if he was better at bullshitting us, there'd be less MAGAs done with the uniparty. But we have this opportunity to look right in the mirror and say, this guy is the thing. He is the empire. He is exactly the thing we don't want to be. And we're ready to for something different. I think that's been the theme of today's conversation, gentlemen, that we're at a turning point here. Epstein was the leak, and populism is the movement. I think we can really start bringing people together from all the sides and start doing something as humanity needs right now, especially now, right? Do you have anything else?
Well, yeah, I just want to say, if we're getting ready to wrap it up, the scorecard for today, the over-under for Nixonisms was 2.5. It was under today. We had 2 Nixonisms. We had the Tremors movie about running, and we had the Con Artist book. If you bet the over, I'm sorry, you lost today. We had 2 great Nixonisms. I bet the under today because I was like, I had a feeling. So I was there.
Can I do a book recommendation?
Absolutely.
How about that? Let me find a quick book. Let's see, a book recommendation. How about one that people haven't heard of? Where is it? Here we go. How about one that people haven't heard? Let's go with all of that Phoenix program and blowback. People heard of that stuff. Here's one.
Operation Phoenix.
Israel's Secret Wars. A history of Israelis' intelligence services. Ian Black and Benny Morris. How about that?
Yeah. There's a lot of I've had people tell me that Israel was kind of going around the IDF for years and bombing mosque or what is the Israel Sabbath? Is that what it's called? Their church service, that they were bombing these services in other countries like in Iraq and in Syria, whatnot, because they wanted to put the fear of Jewish people that their only salvation, their only option was to eventually move to Israel. So the IDF was going around and just terrorizing Jewish people in other countries so that they would eventually bolt. So they can create the land of Israel, the state of Israel.
Yeah.
Doesn't shock
I wonder
me.
if that book has a lot of that stuff in there, or maybe talks about some of that.
Not that particular, but it's got a lot of stuff.
It's got a lot of stuff that happened before October 7th. I'm confused, Garland, because I thought that's when everything started. I don't understand. There was nothing before that, right?
They were just before that. The Israelis were just planting olive trees and trying to get along with everybody.
That's it.
Yeah. So I don't know. But yeah, if you are curious, guys, about anything that happened before October 7th, I'm reluctant myself. But if you're curious, check out that book. That's a good one. That's it. Yeah. We'll
Ian Black, Benny Morris.
Yeah.
Where's your show, by the way? What days do you do your show? And
different days. Usually Thursdays I have a bunch of guests. Thursdays I usually have Scott Ritter, Mark Sloboda, Andre Martianov, and then I have Larry Johnson. So Thursdays usually the big days, but I have a lot of different people on different days.
That's a powerhouse crew. You know, the show I watch the most is Judge Knapp, because everybody's got a great, you know what I'm saying? And Larry Johnson goes on that show. Ritter goes on that show. I'd like to see you on that show. I hope Judge Knapp invites you, because you'd have a great
I'm going to recommend, if anybody wants to, my favorite show.
Yeah.
On Friday mornings, I have a guy named Dr. Jerry Kuzmarov, and he does Covert Action Magazine. And we talk about all of the horrible thing, MK Ultra, all of the stuff that the CIA has done and the MI6 has done. That's fun. Yeah. That is so much fun. That's the one to watch. CovertActionMagazine.com is his whatchamacallit. But that's man, the stuff I find out.
Jeremy Kuzmarov does a show every Thursday with Gloria Guillot. They record it for WBAI New York. And they do it live on my channel on Pasta to Go on Thursdays. Two Covert Action Magazine people hammering it out together, and they got a lot of great stuff that they're putting up there. I'm getting a little scared, Garland, because they go ahead, and I help produce the show, and they put this on WBAI New York. When you're going on a lefty Pacifica channel, like a Democratic, and you start talking about chemtrails, ooh, you can get in trouble. But Jeremy and Gloria are pushing it, so I'm glad he does. Jeremy, I call him the professor, Jeremy Kuzmarov. I'm glad. Ladies and gentlemen, Garland Nixon here with us. Thank you so much. It's great to see you. We'll have you back again soon to get some more Nixonisms out there.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you soon. Matt, got to have you back on soon.
Oh, can't wait for our next one. Yeah, Garland, we'll be in touch. Yeah.
When we all going fishing? I want to go.
Man, I was out there last night. I was out on the bay yesterday, brother, and we'll be back out tomorrow. I'm out almost daily, at least 3-4 times a week.
Y'all got to come to Florida. You got to get the boat, put it on a hitch, come down to Florida, and let's go get some yellowtail.
All right.
We'll do it. Okay.
All right. Talk to you guys soon. Okay. Bye.
All right. Garland Nixon, everybody. Okay. Let me take a moment to introduce you to our good friends over at World Harvest Food Bank right here in LA. World Harvest has been serving families across Los Angeles for 18 years now. And they started with this simple idea. Everyone deserves access to healthy, affordable food, no matter what they're going through. With their Cart with a Heart program, families can walk away with a full cart of groceries, fresh produce, dairy, meat, and pantry supplies for just a $50 contribution. That's for the entire cart. That same cart will cost over $300 at a typical grocery store. At World Harvest, everyone is welcome. They don't ask for income verification, ID, or any paperwork. No. Basically, their doors are open to anyone who's doing their best, but just needs a little extra push to get by. If you're an Angelino like me, you know the times have been tough here. First with all the union strikes, the LA fires, and now the ICE raids going on. It seems like we're living in a constant state of uncertainty. And that's why it's so important to support local charities like World Harvest, because they aren't just helping the community. They're an essential function in its very survival. World Harvest is located at Venice and Arlington. And right now, you can use our special discount code THL20 for 20% off your contribution amount at checkout. And if you're not in the LA area, you can still help out with a $50 donation, which will provide a full cart of food for a family by going to worldharvestfoodbank.org or scan the QR code for more info. Or you can just spread the word. Follow them online. Let people know they're here for them, because at the end of the day, it's about providing choice, access, and relief without barriers. World Harvest Food Bank. End hunger now.